Megan. Please like and subscribe because My Story Animated will give $1,000 to one lucky person who subscribes in the next 7 days. My American mom met my dad in London when she studied piano at university, and they got married and then had my older sister Susie. They moved back to the States so mom could work on her career, and then had me. Then they started having problems, and my dad thought it would be best to move back to London. But for some reason, Dad only loved Susie and ignored me all the time. On my 5th birthday, Dad bought her a PlayStation and beautiful dresses, while I only got a grumpy look from him. But Dad, it's my birthday. Why didn't you get me anything? Don't you love me?
Oh, stop being such a crybaby. I told you, Mum, I only wanted one child. Susie was enough for me. But no, you had to come along.
Seriously? He was such a jerk. And Susie always made sure to remind me she was his favorite. But thankfully, I had Mom, and she loved me to bits. Then one night when I was 8, Susie and I heard Mom and Dad fighting like crazy.
I know that child ain't mine. I know you cheated on me, you awful woman.
OMG. Is that why Dad hated me all this time? Because I wasn't his daughter? Dad stormed out of the house with his bags and didn't even stop for Susie as she called out to him. I hugged Mom and cried, but she convinced me that he was crazy and we were better off without him. But there was someone who was super pissed. Susie. Dad left because of you. You're the reason for everything bad, Megan, and I'm going to kick you out of our lives for good and bring him back. I thought she was just going to be mad for a while, but the next day, I screamed when I went into the bathroom. Stuck on the mirror was my head cut out from a photograph with the eyes poked out and red paint streaks on my face. Of course it was Susie. I found more of those pictures all around the house, and I showed them to Mom, and she grounded her. Over time, I grew even closer to Mom, and she discovered that I was great at playing the piano, just like her. She started teaching me, and by 7th grade, I was good enough to be selected as the key player of the school's music team. But Susie just couldn't live with that. On the day of the program, when I went on stage, I saw that my music notes had been burned. There was only a heap of ash on the piano with a note, "Hope you fail and keep failing for the rest of your life. You don't deserve happiness." Susie was a psycho, and I was gonna kill her. I nervously started playing the music from memory, and everyone in the audience loved my performance, except for Susie, of course. She looked fuming mad. As soon as I got home, I confronted her. "What's wrong with you? Don't you think it's time to find something to do with your life besides being a pain in my butt? My life? You ruined my life, my happiness, my family. I'm not going to let you breathe in peace, Megan. Just you watch and wait." OMG, she was unbelievable. But then what happened next shocked me even more. My left hand suddenly grabbed her hair and smashed her face into the cake Mom got to congratulate me. She screamed as loud as she could, and Mom came running. "What did you do now, Susie?" But it wasn't Susie this time, it was me. And I had no idea what had just happened. I ran out of there all confused. A few days later, I was taking my math test in class, but I couldn't figure out any of the answers. I started to panic when suddenly my left hand grabbed the test paper of the girl sitting next to me. She screamed in shock. And up next, detention. What the freaking heck? What was wrong with my hand? Susie couldn't wait to break the news to Mom. As soon as we reached home, she started screaming. "Look, Mum, your favorite has made you so proud. She got detention for cheating." Mom looked at me in shock, but I just ran up to my room. Later that evening, I told her what had been happening with my hand, and the next day, she took me to the doctor. And it turned out I had a strange condition called alien hand syndrome, where my left hand acts like it has a brain of its own.
It's more likely to get out of control when you're experiencing extreme emotions, like stress.
What? Then what about my career as a pianist? I freaked out and my left hand smashed the doctor's instruments into the wall. I decided to keep it a secret from Susie because I didn't want her to tell the world that I was a freak. I thought my life was just ruined, but at least I had my best friend Max. He never visited me at home anymore because once Susie had put so many chilies in his food, he ended up in the hospital. I didn't tell him about my hand, but he could tell I was bummed out. So he took me out for ice cream that evening. As we were walking back home, he suddenly turned to me.
You have ice cream on your nose. Do you mind if I...
Saying that, he moved closer, and my heart started beating a bit faster. What was he doing? He leaned in to kiss me, and I ended up slapping him really hard. Not my freaking alien hand again. Oh, Max, I'm so sorry. I really didn't mean to. It's just,
No, it's my fault. I should have asked you first. I'm sorry.
Saying that, he ran off. I felt so terrible. A couple of days later, I was looking for him everywhere to apologize, and I found him making out with some girl in the music hall who was none other than freaking Susie. Oh my God, Max! Why are you kissing my sister?
What are you, the kissing police? I can kiss whoever I want. You missed your chance when you slapped me.
Oh, you obviously deserved more than that. Whoa. Easy there, Hulk. He's my boyfriend, and we've been dating for a whole day now. Susie, you know he's my best friend. Why are you such a jerk? Jerk? You're the jerk here, always wanting to take away my happiness. I'm not going to let you do it, Megan, so keep your paws off him. Saying that, she grabbed his hand and stormed out of the music hall. She just wanted to take away everything from me, even my best friend. Days passed and I focused more on my music. In the 10th grade, I had a chance to audition for a spot at the best music academy in the country. I was super excited for it. I reached the venue an hour early, but as I was waiting for Mom backstage, Susie called me on my cell phone, and she was crying hysterically. Megan, you have to hurry. Mom met with an accident on her way to you, and she's in the hospital now. Did that witch really think I'd believe her? But I called Mom 10 times and she just wouldn't answer. That's when I started to panic, so I quickly hailed a cab and rushed to the hospital. Halfway through, I suddenly got a call from Mom. Honey, my phone was on silent and I didn't even know. I just saw all your calls. I'm at the venue. Where are you? OMG, I couldn't believe Susie had played me. I got stuck in traffic on the way back, and I arrived 10 minutes late for my performance. As the judges glared at me, I sat down shakily and tried to calm down, but I was so flustered. The performance started out fine, but only after a few minutes, my left hand went bonkers, and it turned into a complete nightmare. As people started to laugh, I ran off the stage in tears. I was so embarrassed and furious at Susie. She was so cruel. When Mom and I got home, I walked straight to Susie and slapped her hard in the face. I can't believe you'd stoop so low to hurt me. You ruined my performance. Do you have any idea how important it was for me? Yeah, I do, and I don't care. Just like you people don't care about me. Mom has always loved you and supported you. But me, after Dad left, she just abandoned me. Oh, honey, what are you talking about? I love you as much as I love Megan, but you always pushed me away, and I felt you hated me. Oh, yes, I do hate you. I hate you for making me feel left out. You two even have your own little secrets, don't you? Yes, I know all about Megan's condition, and I was just waiting to use it against her at the right time, and it all worked out wonderfully. I was about to attack her again, but Mom stopped me and Susie stormed off. I was never going to speak to that witch again, ever, but I could still annoy the heck out of her. I hooked up my piano to some large speakers and played like crazy day and night right outside her room. I started making videos of myself while playing and uploading them on my YouTube channel. Once, I even composed a song especially dedicated to her. If you know any Susie, just be aware. Even if she's your sister, please take care. My sister can't see me happy. No, just never. My witch sister hates me forever and ever. The next day, I had hundreds of comments on that video. People loved my little composition, and they even sent me sympathetic messages about their own mean sisters. And a few days later, I got an email from a famous music producer saying he saw some real talent in me and that he'd like me to work with him on a new album. What? Could it be that I was dreaming? This was insane. Soon after, my first album came out and it became a huge hit, and I was on freaking cloud 9. After that, I was playing at concerts and even went on a music tour with Taylor Swift. Then one day, the bell rang and Susie opened the door. I went running when I heard her screams. Standing in the doorway was Dad? OMG, Dad, I knew you'd come back for me. I missed you so much. What took you so long? But suddenly, he just pushed Susie aside and came running to me.
Oh, my daughter, my lovely, talented, famous daughter. I knew you'd make me proud one day.
What are you saying, Dad? I'm your daughter, Susie, the one you love the most.
You're not my daughter. You're the reason I left this house in the first place, 'cause you aren't my own blood.
What? This was crazy. All this while I thought I wasn't his kid, but turns out Susie wasn't? She burst into tears when she heard this, but Dad wouldn't stop.
I don't know whose worthless child you are. Megan is my only daughter.
Just stop it, Dad. You're not Susie's dad, and you're not mine either. You never loved me, and then you just abandoned us all. You're not fit to be anyone's dad, and don't you dare talk to my sister that way. Just then Mom stepped in, looking furious. You crazy, horrible man. I never cheated on you, and they're both your daughters. But you wouldn't believe me. Well, you don't deserve either of them, you selfish creature. Dad looked at Susie and said that he loved her and that she needed him. You only came to get Megan's money. You never loved me, and I blamed Megan for it. I thought she was the reason why you left me. But I realize now, you're just a terrible gold digger, Dad, and I don't want to see your face again. So leave, now. And then Susie kicked him out of the house. I'm so sorry, Megan. I was so mean to you all this time. I was such a moron for treating you like an enemy, and I don't deserve to be your sister. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm very sorry. Everything you did to me affected me badly. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you, but I believe in second chances. I really hope you change. But for now, we can start with a hug. Susie hugged me and Mom joined us. I love you, my precious daughters. Everything will be fine as long as we're together.
As if the last year of school before college wasn't stressful enough, my dad got himself fired and we had to move to a new city so he could find a new job. It wouldn't have been so bad, except Dad was a teacher at my school, so everyone knew what he'd done. It was one of the worst things to happen to us since Mom died when I was 12. But this time, it was all Dad's fault. You see, he was having an affair with the principal's wife, and someone in my grade filmed them and shared it across social media. I could have stayed at this school and finished my exams, but let's be honest, I'd never live it down. I lasted about 3 days before I went to the principal and told him I was leaving. He didn't even look at me. He just said, "You should be ashamed of your dad. Get out of my school." When I was emptying out my locker, one guy came up to me and said that me and my dad were a disgrace, and I shouldn't show my face in this town again. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. So Dad and I packed up and moved, leaving our old life behind. I was miserable at first. The video was still viral, and I even thought about asking Dad if I could change my surname to Mom's old name, just so I wouldn't have to be associated with it all. Dad couldn't find a job anywhere. Everyone recognized him from the video, and some newspapers had written about it too. It was a nightmare. I knew I'd have to start at a new school so I could sit my final exams, so I decided to try and disguise myself. I cut my long hair into a pixie cut and bleached it blonde. Then I got my nose pierced. On the first day, Dad offered to drive me, but I told him I'd walk, just in case anyone recognized him. I knew I was being mean to him, but I didn't care. He'd ruined my reputation, and I wasn't about to let him do it again. As I was walking to school, I wasn't paying attention, and I bumped into a young guy. "Hey, watch it," he said. "I'm blind." I apologized, then looked back at him. Wow, I'd never have known he was blind. And then I got an idea. I reached into my bag and put on my sunglasses, and then when I got closer to this school, I held onto the wall and walked alongside it slowly. I could see people looking at me, but I didn't care. A few people started whispering, and I let go of the wall. What was I even doing? But then a girl came up to me and introduced herself as Elsie and took me by the arm and offered to help me walk to class. She said her brother was blind too, so she knew how difficult it could be sometimes. Well, too late now. I'd started this, so I just have to play along. I mean, how hard could it be? I told her I was new around here and this was my first day. She seemed so excited. She started describing things to me like where the girls' bathroom was, and then she took me to register, and I was so sure the principal would know I was lying. But it seemed this school took disabilities seriously. For the first time in ages, I felt like people actually cared about me. Elsie was assigned as my guide, and that first morning passed in a blur. When she introduced me to her boyfriend at lunch, I had to stop myself from staring at him. He was such a babe. But then I realized I could stare all I wanted because he obviously thought I couldn't see him. And when Elsie had her back turned, I could see him checking me out, looking me up and down. And from the way his mouth was hanging open, it was clear he thought I looked good. It was like a whole new world had opened up. As soon as people found out I was blind, they did all kinds of things in front of me. One guy was picking his nose, and then when we went to the bathroom, Elsie didn't even close the door. It was pretty awkward, but what could I do? Surely someone would catch me out. And yup, sure enough, in the afternoon, things went downhill. Elsie dropped me off at the classroom for people with special needs, and then she just left me there. I looked around me and realized people there seriously had proper disabilities and learning difficulties. I wanted to scream that I was a fraud and run out, but the teacher came over to me and gave me a hug, and I was reminded why I was doing this. Anything to avoid being the girl whose dad got fired because of an affair. But then she put a book in front of me, and I realized it was Braille, and my heart almost stopped. How was I supposed to know what this book was about? I had no clue how to read it. I had to get out of there. I told her I wasn't feeling very well, and then I reached out to grab onto the chair in front of me so I could feel my way out of the classroom. But I didn't even realize how hard I'd pulled it, or the fact there was someone sitting in it. And the next moment, the chair was falling on top of me, and then a girl fell onto the floor. I just lay there trying not to cry. How had I not seen her sitting there? This whole faking being blind thing was starting to mess with me. Then it got worse. She landed on her arm and broke it. She was actually blind, which made me feel so bad. And no one was even angry with me because they all assumed I couldn't see. The teacher ordered an ambulance for the blind girl and offered to call my parents to pick me up. And I panicked and said my dad was sick and my mom had passed away years ago. The teacher felt so bad for me and said I could rest in her office until the end of the day, and then she'd drive me home. I sat in the teacher's office and waited, and then eventually I decided to leave without her noticing. I left a note thanking her for looking after me. I wrote it with my left hand, of course, so it would look realistic, and then I snuck out. Everyone was in class, so I just walked out of there like normal and headed home. When I got home, Dad was in a good mood. He'd got a job interview and he had a date that night. I just ignored him and went to my room. What a crazy first day! The next day, Elsie was waiting for me at the gate, and I had to pretend I didn't see her and walk straight past her, but she grabbed my hand and helped me to class again. Then my teacher was there to welcome me, and she said she had some exciting news, that seeing as I was 18 and blind, and my dad was sick, I could claim some benefits to help me out. I couldn't believe it! Jackpot! Maybe being blind wasn't so bad after all. That morning I had gym class, which I wasn't expecting. I thought another perk of being blind would be that I got to skip sports and stuff. But no, it was so humiliating. It was a swimming class. The gym teacher gave me a swimsuit and I put it on backwards, thinking that would be more realistic. But our special needs department teacher rolled her eyes at me and said that by now surely I knew how to dress myself. She'd been so nice to me up until now. I didn't get it. I kept watching her and she was constantly looking at her phone. The rest of the day dragged by. Faking being blind was hard work. After school, I decided to go check out the mall. I wore my sunglasses in case anyone from school saw me. Anyway, the mall was pretty lame, so I bought a milkshake and decided to leave. Suddenly, I saw Elsie and her boyfriend, and I panicked. I was playing on my phone, and I was like, that's it, my act is up. They were kissing, so I walked by quickly, hoping they wouldn't see me. And then I realized something. It wasn't Elsie he was kissing. I looked right at him, and he froze and opened his mouth to say something. Then I heard him whisper under his breath, "Never mind, she's blind. Phew. Except I wasn't blind, mister, and you have officially been caught in the act." I walked back around, hid behind the fountain, and quickly snapped a pic of them kissing. Elsie deserved better. I looked her up on Instagram and sent her a private message with the photo. She replied straight away saying, "Who is this? Why are you trying to ruin my relationship?" And then it clicked. My Instagram handle wasn't my name, and my pic looked nothing like me. Oh yeah, and I was blind. Obviously she didn't know it was me. Well, at least she now knew that her boyfriend was a lying, cheating. Over the next few days, Elsie didn't come to school, and I regretted sending her that photo. If she found out it had been me who sent it, I'd probably have lost my only friend. I could see her boyfriend looking at me in a horrible way, but I just kept my head down. She must have told him someone had seen him that day. Was he on to me? He definitely was, because on Friday afternoon, I saw him going into my locker and taking my phone. It took all my strength not to jump out at him and stop him, but it was too late. He had taken it. I hurried home wondering what I could do. He'd see all the photos and figure out I'd been faking it. I could report my phone missing, but I had no proof that it was him that had done it. I couldn't exactly say I'd seen him. I just wanted to get home to try and figure out what I'd do next. Except that was not what happened. My dad had invited his date over, and as soon as I walked through the door, he told me to get changed and come join him in the kitchen. Great, just what I needed. I was chopping carrots when she arrived. I turned around as my dad introduced her. "Allison, sweetie, come meet my new girlfriend, Susan." I literally just missed my foot. I dropped the knife right out of my hand and stared in shock. "Oh no, Allison, are you okay? Wow, what a coincidence. You shouldn't be using sharp knives. Come on, Kevin, surely you know better than that," she said. "Hang on, you two know each other?" my dad said. "Why, yes, of course. I'm Allison's teacher. Why didn't you mention your daughter was blind? I had no idea you were her father. In fact, she told me her father was sick." I stood there, my skin burning with shame. I had to run. This was my absolute worst nightmare. "Allison!" my dad screamed, and that was how I got caught. I'd faked being blind because I just wanted people to like me and not associate me with my dad's mistakes. And now I'd gone and messed up everything, including my dad's new relationship. Susan, my teacher, was so upset with me and said I was a huge disappointment and that she didn't want to be with a man who'd raised a daughter like me. I guess I was just as bad as my dad, like father, like daughter. I wish I could say it all blew over after that and that I went back to school the following Monday and started afresh. Nope, life doesn't work like that. I was expelled, of course, and that Monday after school, there was a knock at the door. Elsie was standing there and I held my breath, assuming she was about to go crazy at me, but instead she just handed me my phone. She said she'd been angry to find out I'd been lying about being blind, especially as her brother was blind, and it wasn't okay to joke about this kind of thing. But then she said I'd saved her from dating a cheater, and she was so grateful. I was shocked. That was not how I expected her to react. She said she'd broken up with her boyfriend and that he'd been suspended for stealing. "So, you still want to be my friend?" I asked her, and she did. I couldn't believe it. Sure, I could have saved myself a whole lot of trouble if I hadn't faked being blind, but then would I have discovered that Elsie's ex was bad news? And would Elsie have befriended me in the first place? There were just two small problems. I had to finish school, and I had to find a way to help my dad. He was so depressed about Susan breaking up with him. I plucked up the courage and called Susan and asked if she would meet me so we could chat. She agreed, and when we met, I told her I'd really messed up, but I'd only done it because of what had happened at my last school. I told her my dad had made some stupid choices in the past, and I had too, but he really liked her and deserved a second chance. I said I'd do anything to make it up to her and begged her to ask the school to let me come back. Well, not only did they let me come back and finish my last year, they even hired my dad. Him and Susan are together now, and Elsie is my best friend. We're even going to the same college. And I've actually been learning Braille for reals. Part of the deal of finishing school was that I volunteered to help the kids with learning difficulties. I mean, it's the least I could do, right? I won't ever fake anything again. And guess what? People actually forget stuff. My dad's affair at my old school is old news now, and so is my whole faking being blind thing. Here's to a more honest future.